The Complete Horror Story. Scariest True Horror Stories Compilation. The Archivist's Discovery. My name is Dr. Nathan Pierce, and I'm a paranormal archivist, someone who catalogues and preserves accounts of unexplained phenomena for academic study. Over 12 years, I've collected thousands of stories. Ghost sightings, UFO encounters, cryptid reports, possessed objects. Most are explainable. Some aren't. But nothing in my collection prepared me for what I found in the basement of the old Reichenbach Library in Bavaria. I traveled to Munich in November 2019 to examine their occult collection, legendary among researchers but rarely accessible to outsiders. The head librarian, an elderly man named Klaus Brenner, seemed reluctant to grant me access. "Why do you want to see the Schwarz-Sammlung?" he asked, using the German name for the black collection. "These are not pleasant materials, Dr. Pierce. They are kept locked away for good reason." "I study the history of paranormal belief systems," I explained. "Your collection contains some of the oldest documented accounts in Europe. It's essential research." Klaus studied me with watery blue eyes that had seen too much. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. But there is one section you must not access. The sealed archive. Do you understand? Under no circumstances." "Of course," I agreed, though my curiosity was already piqued. He led me down 3 flights of stairs into a basement that smelled of mildew and something else, something organic and vaguely sweet, like flowers left too long in a vase. The black collection occupied a climate-controlled room lined with shelves of ancient manuscripts, leather journals, and boxes of documents dating back to the 1400s. "You have until 6 o'clock, Klaus said, handing me white cotton gloves. "The library closes at 7. I will come collect you." He gestured to a locked iron door at the far end of the room. "That is the sealed archive. Remember your promise." The moment he left, I knew I would break it. I spent hours examining the accessible collection, accounts of witch trials, demonic possession, unexplained deaths. Fascinating material, but nothing extraordinary. My eyes kept drifting to that locked door. What could be so dangerous that it required isolation even within a collection of dark materials? At 4:30 p.m., I picked the lock. It was easier than expected, the mechanism old and simple. The door swung open silently, revealing a smaller room, barely 10 feet square. A single wooden table stood in the center, and on it sat 3 items: a leather journal, a metal box, and a note written in English, as if waiting specifically for me. The note read, "If you are reading this, you have made the same mistake I did. I am sorry. May God have mercy on your soul. Father Heinrich Vogel, 1967". My hands trembled as I reached for the journal. The leather was cold, almost frozen despite the room's temperature. I opened it to the first page, dated March 15, 1923, written in careful German script. I began to translate. "My name is Dr. Ernst Reichenbach, and I have discovered something that should never have been found. In the mountains near Berchtesgaden, while investigating reports of missing hikers, I uncovered a cave system previously unknown to modern cartography. Deep within, carved into the living rock, I found a chamber. And in that chamber, a book." I turned the pages, reading faster now. Dr. Reichenbach described the book in the cave, ancient beyond measure, written in no language he could identify, bound in leather that felt wrong to the touch. But when he looked at the pages, words appeared in German, as if the book was translating itself for him. "It calls itself the Compendium der Schrei," he wrote. "The Compendium of Screams. It claims to be a collection of true horror, not stories, but actual events preserved in a form beyond our understanding. Each account is not merely written but somehow contained, held in stasis, waiting to be released into the mind of a reader." I felt cold sweat forming on my forehead. This was clearly the delusion of a disturbed man, yet something about the precise, clinical way he wrote made it disturbingly credible. I made the mistake of reading one account, Dr. Reichenbach continued, about a village in medieval France where the dead did not stay dead, where they crawled from their graves each night and stood outside the homes of the living, whispering the names of those who would die next. As I read, I did not merely learn of these events, I experienced them. I was there, in that village, hearing the whispers, seeing the corpses at my window. And when I finished reading, I realized the horror had followed me back. The next entries grew increasingly erratic. Dr. Reichenbach described seeing the medieval dead in his own home, hearing whispers in languages he didn't speak, finding muddy handprints on his windows each morning. He tried to burn the original book, but it wouldn't catch fire. He tried to bury it, but it reappeared on his desk the next day. The book does not want to be destroyed, he wrote. It wants to be read. It wants its horrors released into our world, spread like a virus from mind to mind. I have made copies of my account, scattered them in different locations, hoping someone might find a way to stop it. But I fear I have only made things worse. I fear I have created new vectors for the horror to spread. The final entry was dated April 3, 1923. They are at my door now. The dead from the story, and others. New horrors I have not yet read but that have escaped regardless. The book is open on my desk, pages turning on their own, showing me glimpses of what's to come. I see my own death in its pages. I see what happens after. This journal is my confession and my warning. Do not seek the compendium. Do not read it. Do not. The entry ended mid-sentence. I sat back, processing what I'd read. Academic fascination warred with a growing sense of dread. This had to be fiction, an elaborate hoax. But why lock it away? Why the warnings? I reached for the metal box. It was secured with a simple clasp. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, I found photographs, dozens of them, all black and white, all showing the same thing. People standing perfectly still in various locations, staring directly at the camera with expressions of absolute terror frozen on their faces. On the back of each photo was a date and a name. The most recent photo was dated October 12, 1967. The name on the back, Father Heinrich Vogel. The man in the photograph stood in what looked like a church, mouth open in a silent scream, eyes wide with horror. And behind him, barely visible in the shadows, were figures, tall, impossibly thin figures that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. I dropped the photograph. It landed face up on the table, and I swear the figure's expression had changed. The mouth was wider now, the scream more desperate. That's when I heard it. A whisper, so faint I almost missed it, coming from somewhere behind me. I spun around. The small room was empty, but the whisper came again, and this time I could make out words in accented English. You read the warning. You know what happens now. I ran to the door. It was locked from the outside. Impossible, I'd left it open. I pounded on the iron surface, shouting for Klaus, for anyone. No response. The whisper came again, closer now, multiplying into a chorus of voices speaking in overlapping languages. My phone had no signal in the basement. I was trapped in a room with a dead man's journal and photographs that moved when I wasn't looking and voices that shouldn't exist. I forced myself to think rationally. This was a panic attack, nothing more. Old buildings, creepy stories, isolation. My mind was playing tricks. I sat down at the table, trying to steady my breathing. That's when I noticed the journal had opened to a different page. I hadn't touched it. The page showed fresh writing in English, in my own handwriting. My name is Dr. Nathan Pierce, and I have discovered something that should never have been found. My blood turned to ice. I hadn't written that. I couldn't have. But the handwriting was unmistakably mine. down to the way I crossed my T's and looped my G's. The writing continued, words appearing on the page as I watched. I am reading this account even now, trapped in a room with the evidence of my own mistake. The compendium has been waiting for me. Dr. Reichenbach's copies were seeds, and I have activated one of them. The horror is no longer contained in an ancient book in a cave. It is here, in this journal, in these photographs, in my mind. And now that I have read it, now that I know the story, I will become part of it. No, I whispered, but the writing continued. The figures in the photographs are those who came before, readers who thought themselves safe, researchers who thought they could study horror from a distance. They are trapped now, frozen in the moment of their realization, their terror preserved forever. And I will join them, unless... The writing stopped. The voices stopped. The room became absolutely silent. Then, from behind me, I heard breathing. Slow, ragged breathing that didn't sound human. I turned slowly, dreading what I would see. The photographs had fallen from the box, scattered across the floor. And in each one, the frozen figures were no longer looking at the camera. They were all looking at me. And behind each of them, those impossible thin figures in the shadows had moved closer, their forms more defined, more present. The door burst open. Klaus stood there, his face pale, holding an old iron cross. "I heard you scream," he said. I came as fast as he saw the open journal, the scattered photographs, and his expression shifted from concern to horror. Mine got. "You read it." "I didn't mean to, I didn't know." "It doesn't matter." He grabbed my arm, pulling me from the room. "Come. Quickly. Before they fully manifest." We ran through the basement, up the stairs, Klaus muttering prayers in German. He didn't stop until we reached his office on the main floor, where he locked the door and drew sigils on it with chalk from his desk. "What did you see?" he demanded. "What did the journal show you?" I told him everything. When I finished, he sat heavily in his chair, looking decades older than he had that morning. "You are the seventh," he said quietly. 7 researchers who couldn't resist the sealed archive in the past 50 years. The others? He gestured vaguely. They are still down there, in a sense. Trapped in the photographs, in the story, in the horror that Dr. Reichenbach unleashed. "But I'm here," I said. "I got out." "Did you?" Klaus asked, and something in his tone made my blood freeze. He pulled a photograph from his desk drawer and placed it face down on the desk. "I took this with the security camera 10 minutes ago. I hoped I was wrong." He turned the photograph over. It showed me standing in the sealed archive, mouth open in a silent scream, eyes wide with terror. And behind me, barely visible in the shadows, were those impossibly thin figures, reaching toward me with fingers that bent wrong. "You're still there," Klaus whispered. "What's sitting in front of me now is just the story wearing your face, waiting to be read by the next researcher. Waiting to spread." I looked down at my hands. They seemed solid, real. But when I concentrated, I could see through them, just slightly. And when I tried to remember leaving that room, actually walking up those stairs, the memory was hazy, uncertain. "How long?" I asked, my voice hollow. The others lasted days, sometimes weeks, before they faded completely. "You'll seem real to people who knew you. You'll pass for human. But eventually, you'll realize you're just a copy, a ghost printed in someone's mind by reading your account. And when you fade, you'll join the others in the photographs, frozen forever in that moment of realization." I tried to stand, to run, to escape. But I couldn't remember how. The knowledge was fading, along with everything else that made me human. Klaus was writing now, documenting our conversation. "I'm sorry, Dr. Pierce. But your story needs to be recorded, added to the collection. Perhaps someday, someone will find a way to end this. Until then, you're part of the compendium now. Part of the horror that spreads through reading, through knowing, through being unable to look away. The last thing I remember clearly is seeing my reflection in Klaus's computer screen. My mouth was open in a silent scream. My eyes were wide with terror. And behind me, in the reflection, those figures were finally visible, finally present. And they were smiling. If you're reading this account, know that it came from the Reichenbach Library's sealed archive. Know that by reading it, you've created a copy of me in your mind. I'm there now, trapped in your understanding, waiting. And the figures. They're behind you too. Don't look.